Hey everyone, so if you watched my previous video on the talk about emotions, I mentioned doing a talk on happiness. And instead of doing it myself, I hosted this session that I had with my friends. It was an hour long. I edited out only a little bit because honestly all of it was so good. And so it's 45-ish minutes long. I know it seems long, but hey, I hope it's inspiring, relatable. It really definitely provoked a lot of thoughts and reflections for me to go back to as I edited this. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. I'm hoping to do more of this. And I'm sorry because it was so long, I just didn't have the time or energy to add Chinese translated subtitles. And without further ado, please enjoy.
Hello. Thank you all for joining me. This is my first attempt at doing this, so we'll just see how it goes. And as you all know, today I wanted to talk about the pursuit of happiness and if you are on this pursuit, what it means to you and why, I guess. So first discussion question I wanted to bring up is just that, like, what does that mean to you, like happiness in general or the pursuit of happiness?
I think that happiness is just like a side effect of being fulfilled. Like I personally don't really strive for happiness because I feel like that's like a lower tier thing to strive for. Like for example, if you want to like achieve anything, right? Like if you want to be a really good singer or a really good strategist or a really good sports player, like there's going to be like points of that journey that are going to suck, right? Like the conditioning or like practicing the same skills like every single day, and that might not necessarily make you happy in the moment, but like it'll be fulfilling at a certain point when you're doing what you want to do, like playing on a stage or like releasing an album. So I feel like once you're fulfilled, then the happiness comes. But I don't think happiness in and of itself is like a goal for me personally.
Totally. I'll share this thing that I read a while ago. I want to hear what you guys think of it.
Came off a little
That was a little intense.
Yeah, I guess I don't want to turn her words into something else, but to me that sounds like happiness is growth instead of seeing it as rubbish, I guess.
I think what the person is trying to say is like making that our number one priority for everything is probably rubbish, but like happiness in itself is cool. But like if that's all we ever focus on, then like maybe that's what is like the disease that's like plaguing the Western world, but not like happiness itself. If you guys haven't, there's this book called The Book of Joy that you should read. It's by the Dalai Lama and the Archbishop Desmond Tutu, and I cried a couple times.
Wow.
Like while reading it. It's super powerful.
I really like the term happiness, and I don't like to think of it as just this shallow thing. So it is a part of the bigger wholeness, realness thing, but it's like different phases of your life, right? Sometimes when you're young, it's not like you're striving to be happy. You're happy throughout until something bad happens and you work through that so that you're happy again. So the idea of wholeness, I think, requires a maturity to understand. And it's not about age too, it's about experience. And so like two people who may be 20, one may understand it more than another person. So I don't know, I really like the word happiness. And just the idea of letting that—
RINI is happiness. RINI is our happiness.
Okay, maybe it's because that's what I'm conditioned to believe. And so it could just be like what happens if you raise a child teaching them wholeness and not happiness. That could be different, I guess. It's like look at the bright side sort of feeling.
Yeah, it's definitely great to be happy. Why I wanted to talk specifically about happiness is not to tackle it, but just referencing back to the video where I talked about emotions. It's definitely not the only emotion that exists. And I think all emotions are equally valid and important for us to understand how we react to things in life, whether it's something that makes us sad, causes pain, when we feel lonely, isolated, especially in this time, or when we're mad. I remember we talked about the comparison between madness and sadness, which one we like preferred. And I thought about that and I was like, that's interesting, because madness, we say like it's almost like an outwards kind of emotion, whereas sadness, you're kind of directing it inwards. I forgot why we talked about that.
I like how you mentioned how happiness is an emotion. My screen keeps freezing, so I'm scared to say anything right now. But
no, it's okay. We can hear you.
Okay, good. I like how you mentioned how happiness is an emotion, and that thing that we talked about last time with like sadness versus sadness, and then happiness. I think a lot of our emotions or feelings are fleeting, but at times they rest with us or they sit with us for different periods of time as well. And I think it's really fascinating how we strive for happiness, which is usually a very short burst of emotion or short burst of feeling, and we strive to do so much to achieve or like work towards this one happiness feeling, whereas I think a lot of us in society in general tend to try to avoid certain other emotions or certain other feelings. And so happiness to me, yes, it's like more of a short burst of emotion. So it's interesting to see how people talk about the pursuit of happiness and like enjoying your happiness. Yeah.
Like RINI was saying how happiness is something that we want as a constant, because it's definitely like a positive feeling versus all those negative feelings, right? So how do you make it last longer, you know? That's definitely something we want, right? We want to feel happy and content.
Are you talking about contentment?
Yeah, contentment. But like if you're content, you should also be relatively happy compared to sad, right?
I think there's the scale of happiness.
Of course, yeah.
Like people are happy, but sometimes they want to be happier than they are happy, and they end up not being the happy that they were. So it's really subjective, and according to where you are in your life, and like happiness for one person is not happiness for another person. It's not enough. So I like, what is happiness? Where are the other adjectives in relation to happiness?
Can I throw in biology words like serotonin and dopamine?
That definitely reminds me of something about how we are the generation of not enough. Like we're always craving for more information, more attention, more things, more numbers, just more. We always want more. And that to me is more and faster. Like I want it more and I want it now. Like not fast enough, not happy enough. That's something. Yeah, and people take what they already have for granted, which I think now going through this pandemic, people are realizing like, oh, like I have a house to be stuck in versus some people that don't. I am working from home versus people who don't have work. Like those kind of, I hope people are appreciating what they have, I guess.
I think it's super interesting that Grace brought up the idea of like happiness as a fleeting emotion, but then like when we think about the pursuit of happiness, it's like we want happiness to be a constant state, right? So like, and then also like going back to like the serotonin and dopamine stuff and like being appreciative of what we have now. I think when people aren't appreciative, like whatever level of serotonin or dopamine that they have becomes like the baseline, right? And it's like, well, you always want more than what your baseline is. But then if you're always feeling gratitude for what you have, like you always realize that the baseline of like what happiness can be is like so much lower, like not having a home, not having food, not having water. But then if we keep adjusting our baseline, like a lot of us do today, like, oh, I want more followers, or like I want more followers more quickly, then like it'll never be enough, because like the next hit will just be like a smaller increment, and you'll never see like, oh, I could be at like 0 like serotonin or dopamine, and now I'm at 1,000. Instead of that, we just see like, oh, I was at 999 and now I have 1,000. So like that jump doesn't mean anything. So we just want more.
I definitely was thinking about that too, like baseline and also like threshold. I feel that, you know, depending on that threshold, maybe some people get that high or like past that threshold and then like they want to feel that again, or maybe they like keep changing that baseline. And so I guess people continuously change their definition of when or how they feel that happiness too.
Even though it's pandemic and all of us are quarantined, some of us are with family, some are not. But just think about the people that are around you and they are willing to spend time to stay connected with you, no matter it's through Zoom or actually in person. It just makes me happy. I know that this situation will pass and eventually we will meet up. It's just a matter of time. And like, I have a friend, a really good friend in high school. She got admitted to UW and I knew that she will come to UW to study this autumn. But like yesterday I talked with her and then she said, oh, she's going to defer for a year because of this pandemic. And it's really like surprised, but I totally understand that we couldn't actually make a long plans for our future at this moment. But no matter what, things will pass and mankind will survive this. I think like being optimistic also makes me happy. Although sometimes some people might think that, oh, you're too naive, like it's not going to be like that. But it's just a personal belief and values.
There was something so interesting about what you said in the beginning about how you're so really happy that you have the chance to still talk with your friends through Zoom, right? So like one perspective could be like, oh, I'm not happy because like I can't see my friends in like right now or in the future. But then you said that how you're so happy that you still have this, right? So what if the pursuit of happiness isn't in like having more, but maybe it's understanding what we already have?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That kind of makes me think about like the spontaneity of happiness. You can try to plan to be happy, but I think like the moments that I feel the happiest is when it like really I didn't expect it at all, and it just kind of comes as a surprise to me. I think that's when I feel like, oh, that's pure joy, pure happiness for me. That's interesting.
I feel like going off of a little bit with what Chai said too, because we still talk every day, I feel like during this time, I've gotten closer to my friends than I've ever had, because you are forced to just have conversations now. And sometimes they can be really meaningful, or they can be like, you can joke on it and like have like those fun video calls, but more often than not, like what else can you do but talk? And so like, I feel like now, also like when you Angel, when you said like talk a little bit about it, like our generations where people are like impatient and we want things now and like things like that. A lot also with us, it's like we don't always talk. I feel like sometimes with that generation, we just always think about doing things together. And so because those things are taken away from us, now we have to go back to our like, I want to say like roots kind of like you got to have conversations with people. And so I don't know, I feel like during these times, yeah, a lot of things have been taken away from us, but a lot of things are given back to us as well, where we kind of forgot.
I think you're right. It's like we have the agency to create our own happiness now, and it's not dependent on external factors like going out and eating out or going to this particular place makes me happy used to be like the thing. And now it's, you're not alone. And maybe you are physically, but it's how much, like Esther said, how much you make the effort to connect with people. So how do you create happiness for yourself in a day has come to light now. And whether that's working from home or like doing things with family, everybody's going through that right now, especially like I think of mothers who have to take care of their little kids at home. That's amazing how they do that. Like they have to take care of their kids, but also make sure that they stay sane and happy as well. So everybody has different challenges at this time. And I'm glad Chai brought that up. And also, I also like that she brought up that happiness is hope. So that was cool.
RINI, I agree with you to an extent. I don't think that just because we are in the situations that we're in currently with the pandemic and COVID-19, that we are now in control of our happiness. I think we were always in control of our happiness. So for me, when I want to be happy, it's not about like you know, like going out and buying something, yeah, that can make me happy for a little bit. But I think there's a movie, I don't know if you guys know, it's called Zombieland. There's a statement in that movie where it says, there's like rule number 131 or whatever, it's like enjoy the little things. And I think if we can continually find like little pockets of happiness within our lives, and we can control that, and we can control what we see and what we accumulate our lives into, and being able to find those little things that make us happy throughout the day, that's what makes me personally happy. Just Puppy just walking around and kind of slipping around the hardwood floor, yeah, it's goofy and it's really funny, but it's also a source of happiness because it's something that I find joy in. And I think we are always in control of that, and we're always able to see it on like a more optimistic light. And I think a lot of people, I don't know about a lot of people, but some people nowadays, they kind of focus on the pessimistic side, and that kind of shows in their life reflection and things like that as well. So I think being able to focus on those little pockets and little tiny bits of happiness, it accumulates over time, and it kind of gives you a sense of like positivity and love and joy in life. So
I was going to add on what Chai mentioned, like being grateful for what we have. And I feel like during this uncertain and anxious situation, I feel thankful for some little pieces in my life. Like some of you may know, it's hard to find a parking space in Taiwan. So now finding a parking space even makes me happy, and get some coupons for shopping too.
Makes so much sense, yes.
I feel like what Angelina and JD just said about like finding happiness in the little things, and then what Grace said about like having those spontaneous moments where happiness just comes. What we were talking about before, about whether it's a feeling or a state of being, maybe the feeling just comes randomly because of whatever random things that happen in our life, but then to like create the state of happiness, like what JD and Angelina said, like you just have to appreciate what you have.
Yeah, and all those little moments. I agree. So maybe that's how we stay happy. Or at least how we can try to.
Which is what is being put into perspective now, because before there was just way too much distraction. And I feel like people are realizing it now, whether like you should on a daily basis be able to find happiness in little things, but not everybody was able to. And I feel like now they've been put in a situation where they feel it, whether they're trying to or not, they feel it now. And so happiness for them has become something different than it was before.
And I gotta say, Rini, when you mentioned distraction, 100% I agree. I think in a way I created distractions for myself to avoid the opposite of happiness, so that perhaps I can get that feeling of happiness before. And so initially it was difficult for me personally to actually kind of switch my mind around, like, okay, I can't depend on these external factors. Like, what other ways can I like feel that again, feel happy again? And so I kind of had that struggle even up till like I think last week, where I was just like feeling really down. I was just really struggling with ways to kind of cope, and then also figure out how to get that feeling going again.
Yeah, I guess we're all forced to slow down the pace of our lives, because before this, we are all like going to school, commute to work, and we don't have time to actually for ourselves. And now we have so many times for ourselves, and many people need to learn how to just be with themselves alone, and we're all alone together in some ways. So yeah, just learn how to make the time worthy, and do the things that you like. Spend time with people you want to spend time with.
I think it's interesting how I'm talking about this now, because I think before I used to be this really just positive person, because I haven't really gone through any hardship in my life for a long time. And then I think I did take a lot of things for granted, probably, like even my family. Like I just was happy, but I wouldn't like brag about it per se, but I wouldn't be that appreciative of it, because I just kind of was like, yeah, this is my life, I'm happy. But then I definitely think like to go through a lot of different emotions and then to be happy again is something that I've learned to really appreciate. Like now, the fact that I can say, oh, I'm happy today. Like I really feel that emotion way more than I did. If that makes sense. Am I making sense? This was not scripted.
Oh, no, that makes so much sense, because when you said that, I instantly thought of like what it felt like to join this program. And I have been happy in the past, sure, but to know that I'm actually doing what I feel like I'm supposed to be doing is a different kind of happiness. And so like success and being good at architecture made me happy, sure, but it didn't give me the kind of happiness that I have now. So I get what you mean. It's like you have to go through things to know that that wasn't my ultimate state of happiness. It could get higher. So that baseline just keeps moving depending on what you go through.
Like as the baseline keeps moving, do you guys feel like, is your happy now, is that happiness deeper than it was before the struggle? Like you were happy before the struggle and you're happy now, but is this happier?
MAYANK put a post recently about like happiness and what it means to know yourself and be happy because you know who you are and what you're going to do. So when you talk about happiness being deep, I think it also adds a layer of pressure of, this is my life now and I know things, and now I have to be like, I'm happy, but now I have to keep going. So it's like, I can't go back to that because I know what that's like, and I want to keep staying happy and making sure that I'm on the path to what I think is going to keep me happy. So it's like a deeper happiness, but it's also a layer of pressure.
So like, do you feel pressured like, oh, like I know that I'm happier now than I used to be, so like the future is kind of the same, that I need to keep working towards more happiness?
I want it to be the same, I guess, but I just, now that I know where I am, I need to see myself move where I am and not stagnate. Wow, happiness can be related to so many things. We're going into career now.
And that's kind of crazy.
Happiness can be the career, can mean career for a lot of people, different for everyone.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of anybody that's happy but not happy in their career? Like, I don't think that's possible, is it?
That is such a good question. We're all just like quiet.
So just going through, in our mind, we're just going through people.
I'm just
thinking about whether they're happy or not.
Esther, do you have something to say about that? Was that relatable?
JD's like, Esther? A little behind the scenes with me, I have a job that can lead into a career. But for me personally, it's just a job for me. It's not a career for me. Like I don't see myself pursuing this. I don't see myself working up in the chain in this career for now, right now at least. And so there are a lot of days where it's really stressful mentally. And so a lot of the times I'm not happy with the job that I do sometimes. But I think because I treat my job as a job most of the time, if other things in my personal life are going well for me, I can be happy. But there's still that factor that will still affect my emotions. So can people be happy if their jobs suck? I mean, maybe. I mean, I think if I really reflect on it, I don't want to say like this one thing is what makes or breaks my emotions.
Does it kind of depend then on how well you can draw the boundaries? Like if you have like a 9-to-5, right? And then you're like, all right, I'm done. Mm-hmm. And then like that, whatever happened at work, like will not bleed into the rest of my life.
Yes, I think definitely. I think that is a huge thing. And that's something that I am learning still, like day to day, especially because I'm live-in staff. So like I live where I work, and the job that I do is a lot of like student interactions and stuff like that. So it's a lot of people relationships, like that's my job. And so if I know a student is struggling, and if I know I refer them to the counseling center at 3 o'clock, and then I leave my office at 5, but then I still get these emails flooding in throughout that night for on-call staff saying like, hey, they're doing great, or like, hey, make sure when you get back in the office tomorrow morning, do this XYZ for them. If I check it throughout that night when I'm home and I'm not on call, then yeah, it'll obviously like affect my mood, and it is hard to leave work at work. Yes, I think definitely creating that boundary. And I think that I wonder is like emotional maturity of like understanding of like how you should be feeling and not letting it consume you and throughout your day. Just because one thing bad happened to you doesn't mean like your whole day sucked.
I think it also depends on the nature of your job sometimes. I feel like if your job can connect to somebody's well-being, sometimes I think, like for me, when I worked with kids with autism, that was a tremendously stressful time for me, just because it was so difficult for me to cut that like boundary between work and then just my life. Even if I don't ever see them outside of work again, it was a 9 to 5 job. Like if it would be great if I could cut it off right at 5, but it's not like how it is. Like you remember all the stories, you remember what's going on with this human being's like well-being. Like that was a tremendously I guess stressful thing for me to handle. Yeah, that boundary is important, and I think it also depends on how much meaning you put into your work and your job and how much you're investing into it. Because there's some days I walk out, I'm like, I just like sat through that day and I'm fine. And then some days I'm like, that was no good. Yeah.
Going off of what you said about working with kids with special needs, one of my friends in high school, his dad was a counselor for children who went through like some really, really tough stuff. Like, I don't know if you guys have heard, but like CHIAI, which is like Iraq in Chicago, because the South Side has like a lot of shootings and stuff. So it's like, it's super, super serious down there, right? So then my friend's dad would hear all these terrible stories about like what these kids would go through, and he would cry and break down because like he was just hearing these stories, but like these kids had to live through it. And eventually he had to quit his job because the emotional toll on him was too big. So ever since like I heard that, I tried to start thinking about life in a way that I'll do whatever I can do to make other people happier, but I can't be attached to the result of like what my help can do for them, right? Like I can do my best, and then the rest is up to like the world, and hopefully things will be better. And as I was thinking about that, as Grace was talking, I started thinking about faith. And like, if it's out of our hands, then either it's in the world's hands, and then it's also kind of in God's hands, right? So I was thinking like, what do you guys think about faith and how much that contributes to happiness, like spiritually or religiously?
I think it contributes a lot. You know, coming from a family, my dad's a senior pastor of a church. So growing up in faith and growing up in Christianity specifically, I personally feel like it counts for a lot. It may not count for a lot of different people, which is fine, and they have their own ways that they find happiness and find a sense of calmness in their heads. But for me personally, finding religion and specifically like holding on to my specific beliefs and ideologies help me kind of, is not like making me happier, but it's making me a little bit calmer. It's bringing me to a place where I can like relax and be at a certain like that baseline level of just like kind of neutrality. And on top of that, my attitude of like finding little things to be happy about or finding a more positive outlook on life, it makes it easier to go up the ladder of happiness because of my neutrality that I have with my own personal spirituality and my own personal religion. So for me personally, I feel like it does contribute a lot because it helps me find a base and it helps me be rooted in something that I personally believe is going to be true, and I don't have to like worry, and I don't have to like stress or have anxiety about this specific part of my life. It makes everything around me a lot easier because I'm just settled. I'm just rooted in a certain place, and I know that I always will have that base to build upon. And that's why personally for me, with your question, it means a tremendous amount now that I'm talking about it more and more. Yeah, just having that sense of like zero, just like kind of like coasting along, but then being able to like either go up or down depending on what's going on in my life. It just being able to get back to that pretty easily because of my faith really does help with my overall happiness and my overall well-being.
Yeah, Aiden, and that I feel like other religion makes me feel more comfortable, more ease. Like there's always someone who will protect me from the negativities happening in life.
Yeah, definitely. I think like because life is often out of our control, right? Sometimes our emotions are even out of our control. And then, but to be able to have faith, to believe that there is someone, something that's looking out for us and taking care of us, and that everything will be okay. Like having that faith, I think is so important, because when we're so hopeless and just like, nope, then it's really hard. It's really hard to, I think the only way to be happier is to believe that you can be happier. I think that's almost like a first step.
Just to play devil's advocate, I wonder if your upbringings as a child and the way that you grew up and the way that you're taught also has a lot to do with it. So if you are raised in a home that is strong in faith and these are the values and morals that you're taught, then yes, that is what's going to help you feel at ease and all that kind of stuff, and the way that you're brought up. But also maybe like, what if you're brought into a home that isn't a believer in faith in anything, but they teach you like those messages of like, it's okay to fail, or it's okay to make mistakes, or saying things like, you fall, you get back up and you try again. And I wonder if it's like maybe similar in houses that have faith, but just not having that added of like, believe in him and he'll be there for you, and you just have to be strong and he'll be strong with you. Instead of, you just won't add that part. You just say like, you have to believe in yourself and you're gonna be great and you're gonna be okay. And living in that strong household, I wonder if like that also, like that could also help. So like, just to say like, I personally don't think religion or like having a faith isn't like the end all be all of like,
Of course.
it's gonna affect your emotions. Yeah. But like, So I wonder, I think a lot has to do with like a family and like your role models and stuff like that too. So.
And I do want to bring up the thing called toxic positivity, which I think definitely exists. It's like when someone is going through hell and you're like, but at least da da da, and everything will be fine. And I think sometimes being in that negative space is not all that bad, because you're recognizing other emotions that are also valid and real, which is why like the pursuit of like realness, like we should not be competing about who's happier. Like you're not happy, oh I'm happy, I'm happier, I don't know, but just like to be real, I think is, yeah, I don't know where I'm going with this. I was just feeling stuff.
Yes, toxic positivity, I hate that so much. And it's all this, it's the competitive culture, okay? Competition, like, oh, you're feeling bad, well, you know what, I feel worse than you, so feel better about yourself. Oh, you're feeling good, well, I'm feeling this way, this way.
That's so
Failure
true.
to empathize.
Yeah, like specifically what you said there at the end, like, I feel worse, so be happier. Whenever people try to make me feel better in that way, like, oh, you're sad, well, at least you're not a starving child in India. It's like, okay, that sucks for them, but like that doesn't invalidate what I'm feeling too. And as I say this right now, it almost sounds entitled, but like, you know what I mean.
I was just talking about this with RINI yesterday. Was it yesterday? Like sympathy versus empathy. This could be another talk, but I guess in the end, I wanted to do the question like how we can better manage the emotions, whether it be the happy emotions or just, I don't know, stuff related to that. Go.
I mean, I'm still coming out of from what like Esther said in the previous topic of when you guys were relating to faith, and Esther brought up like upbringing. I was thinking about what happiness has meant to me throughout life, and now that I'm my own person, like I've always lived with my parents, and now I feel like it's changed. But before it was very education based, because in my house, that's what if you wanted to be happy, you got to study. So I think it was something that I had to try to figure out for myself, like what made me happy, instead of maybe not always what my parents thought would make me happy. So I thought what Esther said was interesting, because I just went into a whole place in my head. So I just wanted to say that.
You're like the definition of a happy person to me sometimes. I mean, and again, I think I recall your friend said something about we don't always expect you to be happy, but at the same time, like you are such a good example of happiness and like a happy person to me. So it just makes me smile and you smile. So just saying that. Anyway, okay, somebody go on with the tips.
That was like side promotion that I did not plan. I'm sorry.
I don't know how to be happy, but recently when I feel quite stressed or feel down, I follow a lot of memes on Instagram, and some of them are really hilarious. So I guess it's a tip for me to be happy, I guess.
Serena, what were you saying? Something?
Question? Like
my
where people-
question, just like tips in general on how to either manage our emotions, which was kind of more the last video, but or this one where we talk about happiness, like how do we, or contentness, like how do we try to be more that, but not like toxically only, you know.
So you're talking about like a healthy pursuit. to
Healthy, happy. How do we stay healthy,
Healthy,
healthily happy, and happily healthy? Wear masks, wash your hands.
If I were to sum up everything that like everyone's kind of repeatedly said through our talk today is like gratitude. I think it really roots from gratitude, like for knowing your threshold, knowing what you have already, being able to reflect on what you have and being appreciative can lead to happiness. But certainly, yes, there's like materialistic things that can make us happy too. But the one tip that I heard from my very, let's just say, sometimes very outgoing, extravagant, flamboyant friend named Daniel. He has read a lot of books, self-help books. He says, you know what? Sometimes you just need to sit through it. So I think really, again, reflection and sitting through your emotions can really help with the management portion.
Totally relate. I was just gonna say, I think like for me, happiness is really just, it comes from reflection. It's like the tips would be something for myself that I tell myself all the time is like knowing why certain things make me happy and why certain things don't. Like I have to have time, like Grace know, I always need a lot of alone time. Like I'm fine staying by myself like for a week. This quarantine is like very, very casual for me because I'm very used to being by myself. And the reason why is that it really helps me to like clear my mind and think about, oh, why did I feel that? And why that makes me happy? Because something that I always struggle with is what Angel was saying earlier. It's like, I'm that generation. I'm like representative of that generation who wants more. I'm always going between like, I guess, self-discipline versus not being appreciative of what I have. Like for me, happy is that I'm able to discipline myself and do something that will make me feel satisfied. That often means like I'm gonna get a lot of things done, but then I'm over planning and I'm frustrated with myself that I don't get things done, and that in a way roots from the fact that I'm not appreciated with things I have. So I'm like always trying to balance that and being alone to think through that and reflect on why or where I can find that balance is what usually makes me go towards the happy side.
Yeah, I used to write diaries. So when I feel happy, like something happening really funny at the day, or like posting the story on Instagram, and then after some days when I feel quite sad, when I look at the post or look at the diary I wrote, I feel happy again. So I think it's also a tip to record your happiness.
I also feel like kind of going off of what like Serena and Grace said, or kind of like everyone kind of said in general. For me, I started realizing that the more I get to know myself and like who I want to be as a person, the more I learn about myself, and as I get older, I feel like that also helps me understand what makes me happy or what can make me happy. And because like I can say a bunch of things that make me happy, but then that moment when I'm actually feeling like really crappy and I don't want to get out of bed, do I really want to do those things? Like, no, I don't want to go for a run. No, I don't want to call a friend. Like, I just want to indulge in my feelings. And so I feel like the more for me as I grow and become the person that I want to be, and if I know who I want to be or how I want to be, like the more I think about things like that, that has helped me understand like what do I need and how can I get what I need and in what ways and stuff like that too. So like reflecting and journaling and just kind of like sitting on that and sitting who you are and how you are right now. That's been a lot of things for me too.
I have 4 things that I've written down. One, Esther knows this, I'm a very hangry person. So number 1 for sitting through your emotions is have snacks. Number 2 is try to stay away from social media. I know that a lot of people, it becomes a toxic environment very, very quickly. depending on how you view it. So I try to stay away from social media. Number 3 is I create something. I have created a podcast. I have created my own freelance photography business, and those are outlets for me to express my emotions in healthier ways and finding happiness in that. And the 4th and final thing is have good food, good booze, and better company. Really just surrounding yourself with the people that you want it to be. You know that there's a saying that says that you are the average of about the 5 people that you spend the most time with, and I'm a true believer of that. So finding yourself with good people and better company, it will help you kind of sit through the emotions and really be the person that you want to be. So those are my 4 tips. So
Thank you, JD. That was great. Chai?
I think my tip is JD's the 4th point, like, because I think that happiness is not constant. So being with a group of people, like empathetic friends, it will help you to find the balance of your life. It's not necessary like all the time you'll feel happy, but it's like it will help you to realize that all kinds of emotions are normal, and life has its ups and downs. And even if sometimes you feel low, but your friends will cheer you up, or they will definitely know what you've been through and know that, oh, it's completely normal and we are all in this together. So after after some problem solved, then we will still be happy. Yeah, so just be with a group of friends.
Yes.
Those are all so good. I'm trying to think of what else I can add.
Read your own caption.
From my experiences, like all the things that I've written have been from like my own sadness. And the only reason I think that I can be happy is because of how I accepted all the bad things that I felt. In high school, I used to suppress every negative thing that I used to go through. So every year I used to have like 1 mental breakdown, maybe 2, because like you can only bury things like so much, right? And I found that the more you can accept your feelings, the more likely it is that you'll be happier. Like if I go through tough times now, it's like, oh, like I did before too, and then I turned out okay. And I'm like, oh, this isn't as tough as it used to be back then. But like if I never accepted like the difficult things, I could never think that way today. So I think the way to feel happy is just to feel everything that you feel. And then another thing that helps me, which I kind of forget to do at times, is like just observe your emotions like as a third person. Like sometimes when I'm feeling sad, I'll be like, oh, MAYANK, like he's feeling sad today. I wonder why. And then I can like detach myself from the feeling sometimes, and it makes it easier to cope.
I think like going back to what Esther said, it's about knowing what works for you, because it is very different for every person. And so I found like for me, sharing like little things and like not having to experience things by myself makes me happy, which is why I do what I do on Instagram. It's because it's what makes me happy, being able to share little insignificant random things, or being able to just talk to people, putting myself into a project like JD said, creating. I think knowing that what works for you helps. So tips are very subjective. So going through that reflection helps. Like everybody said, reflecting helps. And I know they say don't get buried in the past, but sometimes nostalgia can be a source of happiness as well. Going back to the good old days. I guess that's it. Whatever works for you.
I like that as like a closing remark. I think definitely happiness means differently for everyone. How to cope with our emotions, we all cope differently. And when I finally got a hold of, oh, I'm so emotional, I can get really sad, but then I can balance it back somehow. And then I'm like, yes, I got it. Like I finally feel like I'm grabbing onto my own emotions better. Not that I have full control, I don't, but yes, in our generation where we're almost connected 24/7, and like JD said, social media can be a toxic place. I think it's not because of the tool itself. Like social media is a tool. I think just to be genuine and authentic online is definitely something that I want to try to push forward. Social media doesn't have to be a fake and ingenuine place. People can make genuine connections online. We can have important discussions. You can share messages because, yeah, social media is boundless. Like, that's why I'm here in Taiwan and I can talk to anyone all around the world. And that's what I love about the internet. And I'm grateful that we have this, because I cannot imagine having this outbreak and not the internet. Like, I would not be able to live. No, I'm sure I still would, because our parents managed. So I think I just want to end with learning more about your emotions make you happier too, I think. And so thank you all for sharing everything. This was amazing. I will have so much fun editing this, and I hope to do this again. Okay. Yeah, everybody wave. I'm gonna stop recording first.
Wave.
We don't have to exit. Let me just, where do I stop the recording? Bye.
Ah.
Bye.